I think that debate culture is a big problem. I think that right now we have this debate me bro type of attitude. And I hate debates because I feel like debates are not used to engage in dialogue and exchange ideas. I feel like debates are used to get like the best soundbite. Like, what can my little quippy one liner be that people will retweet the next day? You know what I mean? It's not about a genuine exchange of thought, it's about like a verbal battle where you try to be like get the coolest insult. You know what I'm saying? So I think debate culture has really ruined things. I think cancel culture has really ruined things. I think social media and that whole where they've got us all ready to fight each other, like, because that's the way that it is online. Like, it's just a constant battle. And it's not just political Twitter either. I mean, I'm a sports girl, so I'm on NBA Twitter, WNBA Twitter, college football Twitter, and it's like that all over the place.
Buy my novel, Escape from the Village, from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you. Welcome to the party, pal. This is Fountainhead Forum 313. I've got Misty Winston, or sometimes I like to call her Comrade Misty. Her Twitter handle is Sarcasm Stardust.
Yeah.
She is, and she does love sarcasm. I've wanted to get you on here for a while, Misty. I'm glad you're finally here.
Thanks for having me. I'm good. There's a lot going on as always, but I'm good, hanging in there, trying to keep up.
Yeah, I've got to say, first of all, it looked like do you think Trump really is going to stop being Netanyahu's bitch?
Okay, so that's kind of a interesting question. Being Netanyahu's bitch? Maybe.
Or being
Netanyahu.
Israel's bitch? Yeah.
No. Being Israel's bitch? No, I don't think that that's possible. I think that there's probably some attempts being made to make it appear that way, kind of the way that he does everything, right? There's a lot of smoke and mirrors when it comes to Trump. We're seeing that with the pharmaceutical stuff right now. He's saying one thing, but really it's not exactly what he's saying. And he does it a lot. He's very, very good at that, actually. I don't think he gets enough credit for being able to say one thing and convince people of one thing when he really means something else entirely. He's very good at kind of putting on that facade, and he's very good at he understands his audience. He knows his base. He knows exactly what they want and need to hear, what it will take to get them on board. And so I think he's very adept at doing that. But no, I don't think there's any chance whatsoever he's going to stop being Israel's bitch. Now, Netanyahu, on the other hand, I think there's a very good chance he ends up going the way of like a Zelensky, where he becomes sort of a fall guy. I think Zelensky's headed that direction. We've seen this. That's what we do, right? In the United States, we kind of, install these puppets, and then we make them do lots of really terrible things. And then when they are no longer useful to us, we throw them under the bus and move on. And so we've done that numerous times throughout the course of history. And it's very possible that that happens with Netanyahu. His own people are very dissatisfied with him. They were so before October 7th. I think there's a very good and real chance that Netanyahu allowed October 7th to happen, maybe even helped orchestrate it. Because he was in trouble politically already. I mean, there was some corruption stuff going on. His people were very unhappy with him. And we all know that when a politician's in trouble, especially a president, one of the best things they can do is start a war, because in wartime, it's very difficult to get people to turn on a president. So that I think that that's a very real and good chance that that's what happens. So it's possible he becomes a fall guy. I think it's highly unlikely that the United States ever stops being Israel's bitch, at least not anytime soon.
Yeah. Although you do have those rare times where starting the war actually does blow up in their faces, but
It can,
it
rare.
doesn't happen enough. It certainly happened to Tsar Nicholas.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's really a shame it doesn't happen more much. I hope we can figure out a way to make it happen more often. But yeah, like you said, it doesn't really happen. And maybe that's what they're trying to get some kind of regime change, because this war is more popular with evangelical Christians in the USA than it is, and Jews in the USA than it is with the people over there.
Well, I mean, it's not a war. I mean, if we're being 100%
Okay.
honest, it's just a genocide.
Yeah, it's
You can't call it a war when one side is one of the most sophisticated armies on planet Earth and the other side is a bunch of ragtag, like, desert men running around making MacGyver bombs from, unexploded parts from stuff that Israel has shot at them. They don't have a military, they don't have a navy, they don't have anything. So calling it a war is kind of,
Okay.
in my opinion, ridiculous. It's a genocide, and it has been for a long time. And listen, this isn't anything new. Israel has been working towards this for a very long time, and they're not shy about it. That's what I think is so particularly interesting about this, and people still trying to deny the genocide aspect of it. They just say it out loud, and they have for a long time. I mean, they've talked about, mowing the lawn. I mean, literally just talking about going and just slaughtering a bunch of Palestinian people. There was a time where they did studies on what the lowest amount of caloric intake it took to sustain life, and then that was the only amount of food that they would allow into Gaza, was just the bare minimum to sustain life. I mean, this is they used to hold watch parties on a hill in the town called Strout, where like at like 4th of July fireworks, they would go sit on a hill overlooking the Gaza Strip, like just regular Israeli citizens in their lawn chairs, watching the people of Palestine get blown up. And I mean, Abby Martin did a great job of going to Israel and walking around the streets of Jerusalem, interviewing Israeli citizens, and the things that they said about the people of Palestine, genocidal. I mean, high level Israeli officials are online on a regular basis talking about their genocidal intent. So it's a very strange thing to me that people are still trying to deny that that's the intention when Israel itself is very upfront about what they're actually doing there. But yeah, I think that evangelicals, especially, I think that's an interesting thing. I think that the support from Jews in the United States is probably waning. There's a lot of Jewish people in the United States that absolutely do. I mean, Jewish Voices for Peace is a great example.
Yes.
They've been leading the charge, really, and I think that those are some incredibly important voices on the ground. And I think that we're starting to see a lot of Jewish people in the United States question it. I mean, I've seen it from a lot of people online. And I know that that isn't necessarily, a hard and true fact where you see, videos online or whatever. You never really know what people's intentions are on posting those types of things. But, I've seen people post videos where they're like, listen, I'm Jewish. I was raised Jewish. I was raised to love Israel. And I don't know how I feel now. Like I'm really starting to question everything that I've been told. And I think that Israel has overplayed their hand. I think they hid behind claims of anti-Semitism. They've cloaked themselves in Judaism. The Zionists have cloaked themselves in Judaism, and they've been able to hide behind that because nobody wanted to criticize Israel or the Zionists because they didn't want to be seen as anti-Semitic or as hating Jewish people. And I think that that has totally blown up at this point. I think people now recognize that Zionism and Judaism are two very different things. And I think that a lot of people are starting to ask questions they weren't asking before. And once you ask that first question, it is an inevitable snowball down the hill, and you will start questioning everything you've ever been told. And I think that that's really what we're starting to see happen.
Well, I think the biggest question too is, what's in it for us? And I don't know what's in it for us. America was doing very well up until 1947, so I don't know what we've really gained from this special relationship other than the animosity of just about every other country in the Middle East.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Robert Kennedy Jr. said it out loud. It's basically a military base. It's a military base in the Middle East for us. That's really what we've been using it for. And I mean, frankly, I don't care at all if there is something in it for us. There's absolutely no excuse or justification for genociding an entire people. I don't care what you benefit from it. It's not okay to slaughter thousands of children for any reason. I think that that is abominable on every level. So, yeah, I don't care if there's something in it for us. There's not, as you pointed out. I mean, other than just having a military foothold in the Middle East. But there's really no justification, in my opinion, for what's happening there.
Yeah, and I think it's getting to the point where they just can't play the victim anymore.
Yeah,
And that's always been the whole. That's really what everybody tries to do in wars. They try to create some kind of victim story and turn it into be self-defense in some way or another. And it just, yeah, if let's say some kid comes over and shoots my kid and kills him, and then I go over to his dad's house and I beat his dad up. I mean, people are probably gonna be I mean, that's maybe not right, but people will probably say, "Well, I understand why you beat his dad up." But if I go up and beat his dad up on Saturday, every Saturday for 50 years, they're gonna say, "This is you've gone too far," you know?
yeah, yeah. And that's, I mean, this has again, they try to pretend as if this is an October 7th thing, that history started on October 7th, and that's just not the case. This has been happening for literal decades, and Israel has been brutalizing the people of Palestine in so many ways. I mean, I mentioned, the mowing of the grass and only allowing a certain amount of food into the Gaza Strip. They've been arresting, really kidnapping. They call it arresting, but it's really just kidnapping people, thousands of people every single year, including hundreds of children, by the way. Gaza itself is over half of the population is under the age of 18. So they're indiscriminately bombing right now over a million kids. Half of that population is children. And there's just never any justification for that. And people say, "Whoa, the people of Palestine voted for Hamas." Well, first of all, Israel helped create Hamas. Israel has been funding Hamas. Hamas is actually beneficial to Israel. And they've talked about that. The great Scott Horton actually has a great article over at the Libertarian Institute where he goes through. It's incredibly detailed and well cited, where he goes through a whole host of different times where different Israeli officials have spoken about the benefit that Hamas provides to Israel. So, the idea that this is something that just happened on October 7th, and like I said earlier, very likely that not Netanyahu at least knew October 7th was a possibility, if not allowed it to happen, if not actually helped orchestrate the whole situation in order to justify the genocide. So yeah, they've been slaughtering people indiscriminately for a very long time, stealing land, stealing homes, beating people. During the Great March of Return, they snipers were taking out the limbs of children, just shooting people, peaceful protesters, unarmed. Taking out the legs of 12-year-old boys or whatever. So, yeah, and Israel loves to play the victim. And up until recently, they've been very effective in doing so because they've had quite the stranglehold on the narrative. People will come for me and say that I'm speaking some Jewish conspiracy theory here, but they control a lot of American media. And that's just the reality of it. So they've been able to really have that control over the narrative. But that's starting to fade too. And I think that I mean, as awful and what a cesspool that social media can be. When the people of Palestine can live stream their own slaughter, it's really difficult for Israel to control what information is getting out, and a lot of their narratives have been, completely destroyed. It started with the 40 beheaded babies, which was absurd. That was debunked, and it's really just each time they come up with some new line of nonsense, it's debunked within a couple of hours because people on the ground are able to combat that misinformation.
It seems that way, although, uh, I don't know if the internet's made it harder or easier to dispense hate porn and hate propaganda. I mean, if so if if Le Les Wexner being the richest man in Ohio, if he wanted to make everybody in Cincinnati hate everybody in Cleveland and make them go to war together, war against each other, I think he could manipulate them into doing it.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, listen, that's not new. I mean, they've
Yeah.
been able to manipulate the masses for a long time. They've done an extensive amount of studies on how to control people and how to, kind of mind control. I mean, really, that's what it is. So that's really not a new thing. I think social media certainly helps. But not everybody's on social media. I think there are a lot of people who aren't on social media, or if they are, they're on one platform, not another. So I think that's a nuanced thing, I guess, but certainly, I mean, we see it, right? We've seen the way that I mean, I'm on Twitter generally speaking, that's where I spend most of my social media time is on Twitter. And people try to pretend like Elon Musk saved free speech and that, it's so much better. It's worse now than it's ever been. It's just a bunch of MAGA bots running around and literally bots. I mean, you can go and when, some kind of talking point you can tell that it's been released to the bots and to the influencers. It's the same thing. It's like copy paste the exact same statement. And it's happened with Democrats before. You can see that they also use their own bot network to push out narratives and to, kind of control the messaging. But that's really what Twitter has become. And it's so bot heavy and it's so fake. It's really difficult to have honest interaction on social media now.
With artificial intelligence stuff, I don't know there's much that can be done. I
Mm-mm.
actually adopted a rule a while back, and I've recently raised the number, and I've said this to several other people who have a lot more following than I do. I say, I no longer argue with anybody on Twitter who has less than 400 followers.
Mm.
And, you should probably have a number like that, and in your case, you should
Mine's
probably
higher.
make it higher, but
Yeah, mine's higher.
because you're bigger, but, just make up your own number and just and I actually did that recently after getting into an argument with a real person, but I just said, I don't know, it's
Occasionally, I'll slip and I'll, like, start arguing with somebody without even bothering to look, or I'll just respond. And it's mostly just, I got the time and I'm just chilling on social media, and my it's, like, fun to, like, be snarky with idiots. And so sometimes I just like to kick those trolls around. Like, that's just fun. It's good, just
yeah.
to kinda get it out of your system or whatever. But yeah, I agree with that. I think that, it's really difficult to have an honest conversation, and there's been times where people have been genuinely attempting an honest interaction with me, and because my Twitter experience, I don't know how familiar you are with it, but if you watch it at all, it's a lot of trolls. I get a lot of trolls, a lot of really dumb trolls. And so my snark on Twitter is on a hair trigger.
Yeah.
And so there's been times where I've kind of messed up and somebody has been genuinely trying to interact with me, and I respond with, kind of being an asshole just because I'm just kind of, like, trained at this point to be that way. So I try to watch myself and try to genuinely gauge where somebody's coming from if they, seem to be legit or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, I try not to even bother. I don't respond to a lot of people anymore unless I already know you, already have had interactions with you, or kind of friendly on Twitter. I try just not to bother anymore. It's just not worth it.
I have very sadly observed that among a lot of people in the Libertarian Party, and I literally will go to them and ask them a question with a sincere and open curiosity, and they will come
Mhm.
back with some snark answer,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
it's so and sometimes I will have to ask the question 4 or 5 times, and it may not be
Mhm.
somebody I know and it's just like,
It sucks, but I understand. Like,
uh,
I understand that. Like, especially, um, uh, once you get, and this sounds so douchey, like, "Oh, wouldn't you have so many followers?" Like, once you have a certain number of followers, you kind of like, you have to just assume everybody is a troll because, there's a lot of trolls and there's a lot of bots, and I get a lot of them. I'm sure other people who have larger followings also get a lot of them. I know the Libertarian Party just in general gets a lot of them. So it's hard to gauge who's being legitimately curious and wants to have an honest conversation, and who's just being, a time suck troll. That's really all that they ever try to do. So it sucks. Like, I wish Twitter was more productive and it was more, there were people who were more open to having genuine conversations, but I feel like at this point, Twitter is more about, who can get the best snarky comeback, the one-liner that you can then quote tweet to all your friends and be like, "Ooh, look at me. I, was so mean to this person," or whatever. And that's just kind of the environment at this point. We've just really turned it into a cesspool of, I mean, it's just who can be the meanest to each other, you know what I mean?
and the worst thing is, there's no realistic blocking anymore.
No, which is so stupid. The idea that you can't actually block people where they cannot see your tweets is so beyond absurd to me on
Yeah.
every level. And not just because, like, that's the whole point of blocking, but just from a safety
Yeah,
aspect.
I
Like,
mean,
I have trolls who have literally posted pictures of my house online.
yeah,
So the
exactly.
idea that those people can still watch my Twitter feed and can still, like, and I'm not joking here, stalk me, hate stalk
Yes, and you've
me.
got kids, yes.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, they've gotten into my Instagram account and gotten pictures of me with my children, and they posted it online. Now, they did blur my kids' faces out, but
Yeah,
that's like a threat. Like, that's like, "Look, I have pictures of your kids." You know what I mean? Like, and the
yeah,
idea that they took away the ability for me to block those people, not that they couldn't create a new account and then just follow, because a lot of people do that. A lot of people have multiple accounts that they follow me from, which I can't imagine how empty your life must be. Um,
yeah,
but it's still, like, the idea that you can't block people is weird.
yeah, well, Mike Cernovich blocked, my
He
a lot of
blocks
accounts.
everybody.
Yeah, he blocks everybody, which I kind of understand, but I still occasionally respond to him because I still like Mike. I think I have no desire to stalk Mike, he still says some things that are really, yeah, but he blocks everybody. I can kind of understand that, but yeah, now but you and now blocking is just to the point there where you cannot respond to the person, but they can still see everything. It's yeah.
Yeah.
And that's another place where I draw the line. If you ever bring anybody's kids into it, or
That's taking it too
grandchildren.
far.
No matter how I mean, I even blocked one person because she brought up Rollo Tomasi's daughter, and even though Rollo's daughter is in her 20s now, I just said, "No, that don't go there."
Yeah, it's not okay. It's taking it too far. You don't have to like me. You don't listen, I get it. I'm not for everyone. Like you're not everybody's going to like you. That's okay. I'm a big girl. I can handle it. You can disagree with me on Twitter. You can yell at me on Twitter. You can whatever. You can do whatever you want. That's fine. But once you take it offline and start posting pictures of my house, and then once you involve my children, we're gonna have very serious issues at that point. You know what I mean? Like that's taking it way too far over a political disagreement.
This, leads us into another recent, happening, and I will admit I gave money to Shiloh Hendrix, not because I think it's okay to talk that way to kids in the park, but, uh, the over the top reaction was just completely unacceptable, and maybe this will finally put a stop to that crap. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but,
I do.
and the first thing is any if a mom sees something that even might be a threat to her kids or her kids' stuff, she's going to react the way a mom does.
Well, here's the issue that I had with the way that she reacted to that situation. And I mean, it's difficult to really ever judge these situations because cameras are only turned on once it reaches a certain point anyway. So we
Yes.
don't ever get the whole story.
Oh, yeah.
But as far as I'm aware, the 5-year-old child that she was speaking to is also autistic. I have an autistic child. So I understand what that's like and trying to, parent your child and they don't and I don't know to what severity, he is on the spectrum, that also plays a big role, but a lot of autistic kids don't understand social norms, they don't
Yeah,
understand how to interact with other kids, I mean, that's a very significant issue with my daughter, she doesn't understand how and never has, how to play with kids, how to interact with kids, she's gotten much better over the years, but, that's something that she has always struggled with, so the idea that a grown woman would then take it upon herself to verbally assault a child. I mean, you're the grown up in that situation.
true.
You should behave and conduct yourself. If you have an issue, go to the mother, express that, disapproval or whatever and maybe she did, maybe the situation was attempted to be handled a certain way. Again, we're never going to know the full context of that story, but as a grown up, you should conduct yourself as a grown-up and not resort to verbally abusing a 5-year-old child who also is on the spectrum and it really has struggles in those, environments, and I also think that uh and I've been a long time proponent of this, I think that a lot of these situations, are overhyped,
Oh, yeah.
because I think the powers that be very much want a race war. And so they make sure that these stories are pushed out into the narrative, that they're pushed out in the media, that they're pushed on social media, that they get people talking about it because that helps with the racial distrust and unrest. And so I am always very skeptical when any of these situations crop up because I feel like they're being elevated and overhyped to create a certain environment and a certain reaction. And so I'm never a big fan of those types of
Yeah.
things at all.
Well, we don't even know what the nature of I mean, she might have just whispered it under her breath too and, said something like, "That little," some, just it's hard, but we don't even know what was going on, but yeah, the whole over the top reaction, she didn't come out and say, "I'm sorry," she just kinda let it go, but I hope this might be the end of this, but I think we'll probably need 2 or 3 more incidents for this to go.
Yeah.
Also, I can tell you, I had the misfortune of being diagnosed with a lazy eye at 5 years old, and so they said, "Well, we'll put a patch on one of your eyes to help you make that lazy eye work," and of course, it didn't really work much anyway, but I remember I think I might have been 5, 6, 7, and somebody was about 10. I don't know, I can't remember the context of this exchange, but somebody said something, and it was actually a male adult said something to me like, "Well, I'll punch your eye out." I didn't feel threatened at all, but I just there was nobody recording this on video and uploading it to social media, thank goodness, but, just that's all that should have happened. Nobody should have known who this woman was.
Well,
Eh,
there will always be bullies, and I think especially when it's kids interacting with
yeah.
kids, they're still learning how to behave, they're still learning how to conduct themselves socially, all of that stuff. But again, like I said, when you're a grown ass adult and you resort to verbally
Oh,
attacking
yeah.
a child, you've maybe
Yeah.
gone a little bit too far there.
Well, certainly. The thing that, there's more upset over stuff like Trump wearing a blue suit to the Pope's funeral than there is about his actions as president. That's
Yes.
the thing that's gotten so ridiculous with all of this. Or
Yeah.
Elon Musk making a hand gesture, or I don't know where this kind of mentality comes from where you get upset over an off-color joke, but then you look at what these people actually do, and it's
It reminds me very much of liberals with the tan suit. Like conservatives threw a fit over the tan suit, right? Like back in the day, Obama wore the tan suit, and conservative. It was very much the blue suit for liberals right now, where everybody's freaking out about the blue suit. That's why I hate both sides. I think they're both stupid. They're mirror images of each other. They're each side is a bunch of hypocrites, and it drives me crazy. For example, as a free speech activist, they each side only cares about free speech when it benefits them. As soon as you're silencing somebody that conservatives don't like, suddenly they're all about it. If you want to silence pro-Palestinian protesters, conservatives are right on board. Where do I sign up? And it's the same way with liberals. If you want to silence, some conservative right winger from being on a campus somewhere, they're all about it. So they're both bunches of hypocrites. Like it drives me crazy. But that's what it reminded me of is back in the day, conservatives freaked out because Obama wore a tan suit. Meanwhile, he's, dropped more bombs and like he ran out of bombs. The dude ran out of bombs. And we're talking about a suit. Like he was brutalizing Native American protesters at Standing Rock. And we're talking about a
yes.
suit. What are we doing here? And so but again, I think all of that stuff is incredibly manufactured. I think all of these buzzy hot topic issues of the day is nothing more than distraction. They want you looking over here so you're not paying attention to what they're doing over there. And they're very good at it. They know how to manipulate the masses. They know what issues are emotionally charged. They know how to get you fired up over pronouns or whatever so that you're not paying attention to the fact that your government is, raping, pillaging, and plundering our country. You know what I mean? And so they've got you arguing over the most ridiculous things that are really meaningless in the grand scheme of things, while they're doing horrendous shit behind your back. And it's very frustrating to me that people still fall for it, but people still fall for it.
I know you're in Central Ohio somewhere. Were you anywhere near Springfield last year?
I'm like maybe an hour, hour and a half away. I know
Okay.
I have friends in Springfield
But, we heard all these stories about, Haitians eating
eating
cats.
cats. Another distraction story.
Yeah, I quote this a lot on this show, you're probably familiar with H.L. Mencken,
Mhm.
the the quote, "The whole aim of practical politics is to keep the populace alarmed,
Mhm.
parenthesis, and hence clamorous to be led to safety, parenthesis, by an endless series of hobgoblins, most of them imaginary."
Yeah. They want you afraid of immigrants. They want you afraid of black people. They want you afraid of Muslims. They want you afraid of anybody but the actual source of the problem. And that's what all of this is about. Oh, Haitians are eating cats. That's terrible. Wait till you hear what your government's doing.
Yeah.
Wait until you hear what your government is doing. People are mad at the wrong things. But again, they're very good at this game, and it's very effective, and it still works, and they're gonna continue to do it as long as it works, and it really sucks that otherwise intelligent individuals fall for this kinda stuff, but they do every time.
Yeah.
That's how they're able to get, people to fall for mandated medical injections, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh, yeah.
there's always going to be the marks that will fall for this stuff, and it's really, really hard to watch, when you can see it and other people don't see it, it's really hard to watch that happen.
I wonder if there's a desire to believe negative things about people or a desire to
Yes.
hate people that's out there. It's kinda scary,
Yeah. People need a boogeyman.
yeah.
They need somebody to be mad at. When your life sucks, you need somebody to be mad at. And I mean, they say it all the time that mainstream media is convincing, middle class people that poor people or whatever, whatever. There's that whole famous saying that I'm butchering, but they're really good at convincing, um, middle class white America that black people are the problem, and they're really good at convincing poor black people that immigrants are the problem. And as long as there's somebody lower on the rung than you, you've got a scapegoat, you've got a boogeyman, you've got somebody to be mad at, and it's not who you should be mad at. I can tell you now, immigrant, black, Mexican, white woman, it doesn't matter. Your neighbor is not your enemy. I can promise you that. Our enemy collectively, as the United States of America, the people of this country, our enemy wears a $5,000 suit and sits in a boardroom. It's not the guy across the street that voted for Trump. It's not the Mexican immigrant down the street who's just trying to survive. It's none of those people. And it's again, very frustrating to watch all this stuff. I mean, especially right now, the immigration
Yeah,
conversation. This is something that I've been fired up about for years. Every time we talk about immigration, which listen, is a legitimate issue, concern, something we need to have a conversation about. We need to decide what works best for our country. We all know that immigration can be and is very beneficial in many ways. But we also need to talk about what that looks like and how we can work with it and all of that stuff. But if you're worried about immigration, if you're concerned about people coming here, stop blowing their countries up. How about that?
yes,
Stop destroying their country. Stop sanctioning them into oblivion so that they're left with no other choice but to flee. Nobody wants to leave their home. Nobody.
yeah.
Nobody wants to
It's
make an arduous and dangerous journey
yeah,
from some faraway country to come here to destroy yours. That's not what anybody wants to do. They do it because they're left with no other option because our government has we're just the bully of the world. And that's nobody ever wants to have that conversation. Foreign policy is directly associated with immigration, and nobody ever has it's just immigrants are bad. Okay, well then stop doing the thing that causes immigration. How about
that's
that?
yeah, that's a lot of it, and I always think about too, what some of these people do to get here.
Right?
I just look and say, "Mo,"
It's
I say,
dangerous. It's scary.
you're a Superman for doing
Yeah.
this."
Yes.
I mean,
Especially trying to get kids here.
you've
Oh,
already so in a way, we've already self-selected for people I think who are a lot tougher than most Americans. It's
mhm. For
people who
sure.
are willing to work and endure this stuff. It
Well, and then when they get here, they're willing to do really awful jobs that
Oh,
nobody
yeah.
I mean, most Americans are too lazy to ever wanna do. And, we complain about them taking our job. Do you wanna go work in a field? I don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. And I don't think that if they're going to do it, they should be compensated fairly, treated like humans, all of that stuff. But, I mean, there's so much around this that people, again, because it's so emotionally charged and because people get in their feels about it, they stop thinking critically. And that's why issues like this are used as like those
Yeah.
distractionary, big neon sign flashing sign because they can get people worked up and they can get people, all up in their feels and then not thinking rationally. And then that's when you're most easy to control.
And we have the capacity to generate the wealth. That's what gets me.
100%.
I'm glad to hear you. I wasn't sure where you stood on this, but I'm glad to hear this. It's so, and I just worry about I tell people I want open borders so I can leave. It's, you know, uh,
Right?
one thing I will say about the Ohio cities, I don't know. And when I moved to Austin, I thought I might be far away enough, but I wasn't. You talk about immigrants. You know, think about what happened. Think about what would happen to Columbus if 200,000 people from California moved there.
For sure. And
Oh my
that's what I
goodness.
mean. Like
I'd
immigration is
much rather have the Mexicans.
right. But that's what I mean when I say that immigration is a legitimate issue. It's something we need to have a conversation about. What works, what doesn't, how can we make this beneficial for all parties involved? Obviously, nobody wants a bunch of criminals coming here. Nobody wants bad people to be roaming the streets. I think that that's a no-brainer for everybody. But immigration benefits the economy, it benefits the country, it benefits in so many ways. So I think that turning your brain off to that is silly and self-defeating. So I think we have to have a very honest conversation about it, which is nuanced, like obviously. But I think that so many people are, if you drop even Springfield, you mentioned Springfield. That's
Yeah.
a very small town. You drop, even just a couple thousand people into the middle of Springfield,
Oh, yeah.
there's gonna be some upheaval there. There's going to be some issues. So again, we need to have all of those conversations, but if you want to stop people from coming here, for wanting to come here, then again, you have to look at our foreign policy
Yeah.
because that's where the immigration issue starts. That's the underlying cause. And nobody's addressing that. And that's what I find when you see politicians talking about and fear mongering about immigration, and they're not talking about foreign policy, fraud, total fraud.
Yeah. Well, also just the illegality of drugs, because a lot of these countries do have, I mean, serious problems with gangs
For
practically
sure.
running. I mean, you think 1920s Chicago, but it's a whole country. It,
Yeah.
it
We have problems with gangs. Have you been to
oh, yeah.
Chicago? Like, gangs
Yeah,
are a
yeah,
problem.
Chicago, yeah, Chicago, yeah,
Gangs are a
yeah,
problem.
yeah, and, there were neighborhoods in Columbus that I wouldn't have lived in,
It's like that everywhere. But again, those are issues that people love to complain about, but don't like to look at the underlying cause. Like if you want crime to drop, if you want drugs to go not away, they're never going to go away, but if you want drug use and alcohol abuse, domestic violence, all of that stuff to diminish, people need to be taken care of. They need to live in an economy where they can survive because where crime and drug addiction and domestic violence and child abuse, all of that, not all, but a lot of it stems from socioeconomic, being unsure, unsafe, instability. You know what I mean? People become desperate. They do things that they wouldn't do if they were able to eat and pay their bills. If you can eat and pay your bills, people are content. They're not out there looking for a way to numb themselves or looking for a way to steal to eat or whatever it is. You're never going to get rid of crime, you know, period. That's just not going to happen. There are psychopaths and sociopaths. That's just a part of human nature. But people don't want to talk about the underlying causes of those issues, of the drugs, of the crime, all of that stuff. When we have an economy that it is based around chaos and death and war and destruction, and it only serves rich people,
yeah,
and poor people are getting screwed, there's going to be an increase in all of those things.
yeah, I really think there's and especially a lot of the people, in rural Ohio and in West Virginia, even more so, they just feel like they've been so neglected, and
Yes.
that's part of the appeal. Trump gave these people permission to be angry about it.
And he's very good at knowing
Yeah,
his audience. He doesn't give a shit about them. He's not
yeah,
gonna do
he's
anything for them, but you're right, he did speak to that, and I think on the flip side of that, Bernie Sanders, as much as a fraud as he is, he also did that same thing, is he spoke
yeah,
to those people who have been, forgotten about and who have been neglected by the system and who have been really pushed into, like, the far corners of society, by, the structure of the system that we live in now, and I think that that's what made both of them so incredibly popular, in the 2015, 2016, run up to the election because both of them were speaking to what we're discussing here, is that instability and that anxiety and that people feel like they've been completely, screwed over by the system and that they don't you don't care, nobody cares. Like, no, why do you nobody cares about us? We've been forgotten. And a lot of people feel that way. And when you feel that way, there's nothing holding you to any social norms. There's nothing holding you to any pride in your community or pride in your country. Why would you feel proud to be American when you're living by the skin of your teeth in a country that doesn't give a shit about you? You know what I'm saying? Like people are
yeah.
really that's really what we're facing. Nobody wants to talk about that, but that's Bernie and Trump both did that, and I think that that's why they were both wildly successful.
That's one thing I always laugh a lot on social media when especially one Indian guy I've had on here, and he bashes India all the time, and I just laugh because it's just
Mhm.
you hear people, he says that and he's so glad to be out of there, but he yeah, I there's a barber I think people who, since I thought of 2 Ohioans I thought who did somewhat care about their people not around Columbus, but Kucinich and Trafficant.
Kucinich, yes.
Yeah.
Kucinich is one of the big reasons why I even got interested in politics.
Yeah,
As an Ohio girl, he's the first person that I heard speak, and I was like, "Oh, okay, okay, this guy gets it a little bit." I don't know that he I mean, we saw the way that they treated him. We saw the way that
oh,
they,
yes.
gerrymandered him right on out of his own district. The Democrats, by the way, the Democrats did that to one of
Yeah,
their own. So if you don't toe the and that's why I don't know if you're familiar. I'm incredibly anti-electoral politics because the system is rigged front to back, top to bottom. You will not get elected if you buck the system. Period. End of story. They will. First of all,
yeah,
they'll find a way to get you out in the primary. If you happen to sneak through a primary and they'll either spend a crap ton of money against you to make sure that you're not elected, or if you do get elected, one of two things will happen. Either you will capitulate and you will become one with the corruption, or they will find a way to push you out, just like they did with Dennis Kucinich. So we can't vote our way out of this. That's not a thing that can happen.
yeah,
The system is completely corrupted. And I think that we're starting to see people get that, but I wish it was faster because we don't have I mean, in my opinion, we might be we're already well past the point of no return in this country. We are an empire in fast decline, and I'm not sure that we can right that ship at this point. I think we are well past that point. Um, but even still, even if we can't right the ship, we need to for people to come to that realization so that we can start working outside the system to support each other because we're gonna need it as things fall apart because
yeah.
it's pretty quickly falling apart.
I think we're very close to something like a civil war. It's cut, but people have been people libertarians especially have been predicting this for a long time. I mean
They want that.
that all of this.
Oh, the people in power want a civil war, a civil war, a race war. They don't care as long as it's not a class war. They want us fighting amongst ourselves so that we're not fighting them. Because if we all came together and realized that we have a common enemy, listen, we disagree on a lot. Like there's a lot of things that the left and the right disagree with, which left and right are meaningless terms at this point. Absolutely meaningless. But we can have those disagreements. That's fine. None of them matter until we deal with the system that's designed to kill all of us. We are nothing but human cattle to them, and we have that common enemy. And if you think that Democrats and Republicans are on different teams, you are sorely mistaken. They are owned and operated by the exact same people. They serve the exact same agenda. I liken it to it's a soap opera with psychopaths. They pretend to be on different teams. Their kids go to the same schools. They vacation together. They go to the same dinner parties. Are there cliques? Of course. There are friend groups. There are people that like each other more than others, all of that good stuff. But generally speaking, they're all serving the same masters, and it's not you. And what they do is they use each team plays off of each other. Each team plays off of each other, and they use Democrats to get away with things that Republicans could never get away with, and they use Republicans to get away with things that Democrats could never get away with. And they just use that illusion of choice, as George Carlin once told us about. They use that illusion of choice to keep the people divided and fighting amongst ourselves. Because if we're divided, we're so much easier to control. And they know that. And that's why every time you've seen a leader throughout the course of this country's history attempt to bring people together, the Fred Hamptons, the Martin Luther King Juniors, people like that, they will end you. If you start trying to bring the people together, they will end you because that is the most dangerous thing for them and they know it.
Yeah, who was Fred Hampton?
Black Panthers
Okay,
doing a huge amount of work with bringing poor white people and poor black people together. The breakfast program for kids, all of that stuff. I mean, did a tremendous amount of work attempting to bring people together to fight a common enemy. And we've seen it time and time again. Those are just two examples of many. And if you are somebody that speaks about, uh, that coming together across political lines, they don't like that because that is exactly what they fear the most, in my opinion.
yeah, they definitely are. I also remember, he actually died, but
He
I
was
remember,
killed by the feds.
I also remember Carl Upchurch, and he was in Columbus for a while.
Hmm.
Do you remember him?
It sounds familiar, but I'm terrible at names.
He led the gang. He organized that gang summit back in the '90s,
Oh, okay.
where all the
Yeah.
gangs came together. You know, I've Yeah, I agree, bringing people together. I mean, but sometimes we can't even bring people in the Libertarian Party together. It's so
But that's all by design.
yeah.
Like, that's
I
all.
sometimes wonder if it is. Yeah,
It is. I mean, you can see if you pay I'm somebody that studies propaganda, I'm fascinated by it. I am fascinated by it. And if you pay very close attention in the way like, you were talking about the Shiloh Hendrix thing, that story is elevated for a reason because they know it's going to divide people. Stories like that are elevated for a reason. Stories about immigration are elevated for a reason. Stories about pronouns and transgender athletes. I mean, those are elevated for a reason. They recognize that it's an emotionally driven issue that get people fired up and freaked out. And once you're in that headspace, you do not think logically at all. Your lizard brain kicks on and it's panic. And that's why you'll notice a lot of the times when politicians speak, they lead with fear. The first thing out of their mouth is something that is fear mongering because then everything they say after that, your brain's already firing. You're already freaked out and you're not really able to comprehend anything else that they say on a logical level. So if every time they lead with fear, and there's a reason for that. They're like they've done a ton of studies on how to control people, on how to psychologically manipulate people. I mean, we've seen the Stanford prison experiment, we've seen MK Ultra, they know exactly the things to do and say to get people in that space. And that's why I'm not sure we can right the ship because they are so effective and we're so far behind. Um, and I just don't know how we combat it at this point, especially when, as you said, we have people who are still willing to get in the mud on those issues when it's really not that important. You know what I'm saying? In the grand scheme of things, pronouns and bathrooms don't even make my like top 1,000 list of things we need to be concerned with.
but you've got some daughters though who are athletes. Are they having? Is there anybody trying to put
No.
boys into their sports?
No, I mean, but and I understand. Listen, I was an athlete, again, I'm not diminishing the issue entirely. It is an issue, but the trans population is what, like
Oh, I know. Yeah,
0.1%. It's like a tiny, 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 and that's what I mean, though. When it's something that impacts such a small, 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 infinitesimally small number of people, and it is that big of an issue in the media, and it's being elevated to that degree, you should be skeptical about why. You should start to wonder, why is this being pushed so hard and so heavy? Why is this being talked about every day, all day? Because they know that it can divide people. And that's exactly why it's been elevated to the point that it has. And again, it's an important issue. It needs to be discussed. There needs to be nuanced conversations that are had, all of those things. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not something that I think that we should be as um distracted and concerned with as we are. And it's just that it's all by design. We're being manipulated by
yeah.
these types of
It
things.
it is a very small number of people. I
Mhm.
think people are appalled largely because it's just so barbaric. Uh, but as some ladies I know, believe it or not, there's more women who seem to care about this. They're more
Well,
concerned
because they
about
should. I think women
yeah,
should
well
care about this issue, for sure.
yeah,
I think everybody should care
well,
about this issue, but
I've I've noticed that I have a few female friends, and they're very passionate about the issue of male of the genital mutilation of newborn males, if you know what I mean.
yes.
Yeah, and I don't know any guys who talk about this a lot, but they love I don't know, maybe they
Well,
have
I
an
think it's a
experience.
mother thing. I
Yeah,
think when you go into the hospital to have a baby and then that's being presented to you as an
yes,
option and again, that's another to me, that's more of a personal choice thing,
oh,
a
yes,
parental choice thing. I don't really have, like, a hard and fast position on that one because I feel like that's, as a parent, you should have that choice for yourself, that I should not have any say in what you do with your child. So to me, that one's uh, less of a social issue than it is like a parents' right
yes,
issue. But I think that the transgender stuff is much more of, I mean, that's impacting society. So again,
yes,
it's
it is.
something that should be discussed. But we should have reasonable, rational, nuanced conversations about this without denigrating people, without, trying to insult a whole group of people. Like, I have a lot of transgender friends, you might be familiar with Sarah Higdon.
Oh, yeah, Sarah's
And
cool,
she
I've had her on
I
air.
love Sarah, she's been on my show, I love Sarah, and she has a very nuanced and, very personal take on the issue. She is a transgender woman, she is an athlete, like, she has a very and I very much appreciate her perspective. I appreciate the other side of that
Yep,
perspective. I appreciate listen, I'm an athlete. I loved playing sports. I don't want that to be taken away the opportunity to be taken away from anyone. But I think we need to have very open and nuanced conversations about what that looks like, what that means. And I'm not interested in women being forced into giving away things that they've worked for to please a tiny group of people
yeah.
if that's not what women want. And I think women what makes me angry about that whole situation is it feels like women's voices are being, shouted down, and you're just being people are like, "Oh, you're just a bigot." And I don't think that it's that black and white. I think that, again, it's a very nuanced there's gray space there, and I don't think that it's a bigotry issue. I think that people are just concerned, rightfully so, about, what's happening there, and that again, I wish we could just have rational, nuanced conversations about these issues. But because they're so elevated and because they're so emotionally charged and because they're covered in the way that they are, it makes that very difficult.
And I just ask myself, why can't we have rational, nuanced conversations? It seems as though it's become impossible, and even among, at the Libertarian Party convention when people are getting together live and in person,
Yeah.
it seems like the internet has made it worse, but
I just think that there's so much division right now, again, intentionally designed. And I think that it's really unfortunate. And I think people are the whole cancel culture aspect of things, and, it's sad to me to watch the Libertarian Party partake in that type of a thing, but they do. There's a lot of cancel culture in the Libertarian Party, there's a lot of gatekeeping, there's a lot and I'm not a libertarian, I'm not a member of the Libertarian Party, I'm not a
yeah,
member of any party, I don't subscribe to your isms, I'm not interested in your isms. Um, it's like I'm friends with a lot of libertarians. And
yes.
watching the way that the inner party battles and all of that stuff, and I mean, it sucks when people can't just sit down and have a conversation and find common ground where you can, agree to disagree where you don't, and being willing to engage in respectful debate. I love talking to people I don't agree with. You may not change my mind, but I like listening to other people's perspectives, and I might learn something, and maybe there'll be a little piece that sticks with me that I think on, and maybe over the course of time, I'll start to reform my opinion or whatever. But I think people are just here's what I think. I think that debate culture is a big problem. I think that right now we have this, "debate me, bro" type of attitude, and I hate debates because I feel like debates are not used to engage in dialogue and exchange ideas. I feel like debates are used to get, like, the best soundbite. Like, what can my little, quippy one-liner be that people will retweet the next day, you know what I mean? It's not about a genuine exchange of thought, it's about, like, a verbal battle where you try to be like get the coolest insult, you know what I'm saying? So I think debate culture has really ruined things. I think cancel culture has really ruined things. I think social media and that whole where they've got us all ready to fight each other, like, because that's the way that it is online, like, it's just a constant battle, and it's not just political Twitter either. I mean, I'm a sports girl, so I'm on NBA Twitter, WNBA Twitter, college football Twitter, and it's like that all over the place.
Yeah.
Like, you've got people, you know, going to battle online about, like, Angel Reese. You know what I mean? Like, fighting with each other, like, serious, like, insults and all of that stuff, and I think social media has just kind of created this environment where we're all just ready to fight each other, and it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, I would even probably go before what we call social media. There was a culture on the internet of always trying to make the other person wrong and correct them, but yet they actually end up twisting what the person says. I've been
Mhm.
talking, and they usually end up being wrong. I've been talking, for example, about the end of Skype, which I did use, and I said, well, I've lost a service that was actually able to call real telephones with real phone numbers, and so many people wanted to correct me, "Well, there's WhatsApp." I said, "No, that's not the same thing." It's
Yeah.
or even more recently, you know, I hate the fact that Airbnb is woke, but I still love
Yeah.
Airbnb because it's a good service and there is no substitute for it.
Yeah, I'd
But
rather just
this
stay in a hotel
yeah,
if I
but
can. Like, I use Airbnb, especially as an activist, we will get an Airbnb for all of our crew to stay in the same place because we're trying to make posters and buttons
yeah,
and all of that stuff, and it's easier when we're all in one joint and we don't
yeah.
have to, like, go hotel room to hotel room. So, like, when we do activism stuff, we will do the Airbnb thing, but, there's just so many issues with Airbnb, like,
Oh, yeah.
just being super shady, like, cameras in the bathrooms, I've heard horror stories about that, and, like, just really like, it's kind of like the wild, wild west, like, there's not a lot of regulations yet, it's not super like, safe, or you don't know if it's sanitary, like, you have no idea to what level your that house has been clean, like, I don't know. I feel like I would much rather just go stay in a hotel where there's room service and all that stuff.
Well, you do have regulations on it, you've got the reviews, but
Yeah,
what I was gonna say is, you know, people told me, "Well, there's VRB." I said, "No, VRBO is if you're getting a house or a building, it's not what I do," and I've had a lot of one, but there's always this need to correct people and just
yeah. I think people are more concerned about being right than they are about, again, like that exchange of an idea.
or
And
making somebody else wrong.
yeah, which might actually be the bigger thing.
Yeah, it's
It's sad. It's
yeah,
unfortunate.
it's sad, you know, yeah, we certainly went off on some interesting tangents. I mean, what do you why do you think so many people that and so many people that I thought were good really got suckered into Trump? What is it?
Oh,
This is yeah, and the
man, that's a
reason
loaded question.
I think what's the most amazing thing about Trump, for me is that this is I mean, in January of 2020, he saw this virus and started promoting it, mainly because he wanted to demonize China and demonize trade with China and demonize travel, shut down air travel, made it all engaged in all of this scaremongering, and all of and so many of these people who voted for him totally forgot about that and absolved him on that. He is so responsible for all of this.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, he's Captain Warp Speed. Did y'all
Yeah,
forget? Like, he's still bragging about that injection, y'all. Still, to this day, he brags about that. And y'all, and people who are rightfully skeptical of that whole situation are still giving him a pass. And it's so weird. And I think that really what it is that people are desperate for a hero. They're desperate for a savior. They're desperate for somebody to come along and actually fix things. And that's just not going to happen within our system. And and what fascinates me is that people think that Trump is actually an outsider. I don't even I don't even have the ability to comprehend how naive you have to be to think that a billionaire who is been heavily engaged and involved in this system, friends with all of these people his entire life, like he is entrenched in this system. Was he a lifelong politician? No, but he is entrenched in the system. Period. End of story. He's not some plucky outsider. He's one of them. And the idea that he was able to sell that whole mythology around himself is so fascinating to me. And that the idea that people are still buying his bullshit is just I don't know what he has to do to get like how many times does he get to lie to you before your sense of skepticism kicks in? I'm genuinely curious because oh, I'm going to end the Ukraine war in 24 hours. I mean, it's May 13th, my guy. Where you at? Like where are we at? He's a free speech guy. This is the dude who spied on Julian Assange, plotted to assassinate Julian Assange, and had Julian Assange arrested and thrown in Belmarsh. That's your free speech hero? Like, what are you talking about? I mean, now he's
yeah,
arresting people for writing op-eds that are critical of
yeah,
Israel. Like, he's not who he has ever claimed to be. He's a liar. He's a fraud. He's a manipulator. He's held on to one uh, big promise for the Libertarian Party, and that was freeing Ross. And that's great, but that really like, that was an easy win for him. Like, it cost him
yeah.
nothing. There was nothing, that's it. And the idea that people are willing to pretend like that's enough, to justify support. It's just beyond my ability to comprehend. This guy is an epic level scumbag. He's a liar and a manipulator. He's part of the club. And there are so many people who I respected, who I know are smarter than I am, who were willing to sell out to endorse him and support him. And it's just
Yeah.
sad.
I'm glad Ross is out. I don't but,
I am
but
too.
but that
That's
but
great.
but that but that's breadcrumbs.
Mhm.
You're just taking his breadcrumbs and
Yeah.
you're acting like he gave you
It's
acting
like
like he gave you full
crumbs of
yeah.
crumbs. Like, he flicked a crumb of a crumb in your general direction. That's what that and I don't mean to again, I'm very happy that Ross is free. I'm very happy, and I'm sure, like, to him, it's not a crumb. To his family, that's not a crumb. But realistically, that's a crumb of a crumb flicked in your general direction, and yet people are willing to, support and endorse this guy who sucks. I mean, he's awful, the things that he's doing and has done. Uh, and it's just it's fascinating to me, and it sucks to watch people who I know better, uh, and for some reason, they either allowed themselves to get manipulated or they saw some personal benefit maybe. I don't know what it was, but it sucks to watch.
Well, I think it also helped bamboozle the Bitcoin community,
Mhm.
I remember when Bitcoin came out, I guess I was cynical enough to said, "Well, this will either get subverted or hijacked in some ways," and it has.
Mhm. Of
But
course it has.
it did open up the whole can of worms of other cryptocurrencies, uh, you know, uh, certainly went out there, and there's lots of people I respect. I don't know. I do think that people want somebody to believe in.
Yeah.
Which I can't necessarily blame them for that.
I mean, if this is gonna sound super cheesy, but believe in yourself.
Yeah,
Like, you don't need a politician to save you. You don't need a government to save you. You don't need any of that stuff, and that's what is, so frustrating to me is that there's and people always because I'm so anti-electoral politics, people are my favorite question ever is like, "Oh, yeah? Well, then what's your plan?" As if the only 2 options are doing nothing and voting. Like, voting is the same thing as doing nothing. It is a placebo. It does absolutely when has voting benefited anybody? I'm just
true.
curious. Never.
Well,
The same people get the military industrial complex wins, big pharma wins, big oil wins, like, all the big corporations win, the billionaires win, the people lose, and that's how it's always been and always will be. But there's plenty of things you can do that don't include voting.
well, so many people say, "Well, you can't complain if you don't vote." So, well, guess what? I voted. So,
Well, George Carlin says, you can't complain if you do vote because you know it's corrupt. You know they all suck, and you voted for one of them anyways. So you don't get to complain now. I didn't vote for any of them. I get to complain
you've
because
got you've got kids. I mean, what kind of world do you want to leave for your kids?
I mean, my God, I would love to have like a functioning society where we care about each other and we take care of people, and we help each other out, and we have a functioning education system. And, I live in Ohio. I would love to be able to drive down the street without dodging potholes everywhere I go. I would love to spend our money here in this country rather than on bombs to blow up brown kids in third world countries. I would love to do all of that stuff. I would love to have an economy that works for the average everyday American where, you can have a two-parent household where only one parent has to work and the mom can stay home or the dad can stay home if they so choose and raise their families. I would love that. Um, but that's not how it works because rich people have completely hijacked our government.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work for us anymore. So, I mean, there are lots of things I would like to see for this country. And it's really sad that we've allowed it to get to where it is, but here we are.
How did your kids process all the events of 2020? I always like to ask about this.
So my oldest is autistic,
Okay.
and it was very hard for her. She's very much a routine kind of a gal. She loves
Yeah.
a schedule. She likes knowing what's coming. She likes knowing what's up and where she's going and where she's going to be and all of that stuff. So the complete upheaval of her life was very difficult for her. My youngest, I think, adapted far better. They are very lucky in the fact that I don't work outside the house. So they I was able to be with them and to help them with schoolwork and to, all of that stuff. We didn't really our lives outside of the fact that they didn't have school didn't really change much. Like we were still going to people's houses and visiting with them. We were still we didn't buy into it from jump. So, we were still like hanging out with family and stuff like that. So the socialization aspect of it, they didn't get impacted too much. I also lucky for them, they live in an age of, being able to FaceTime friends or whatever. But uh I think a lot of kids were really negatively impacted by that. I mean, they've already started to see, especially for the younger kids. My kids are a little bit older. But like kindergarten, early elementary age, the delay in speech and
Oh
all of that
gosh.
stuff is horrible. I think that we're going to start seeing a lot of really damaging effects in terms of socialization because kids at that age, 3, 4, 5, 6, they learn a lot about emotions through facial features, facial recognition, and masking was very detrimental to them being able to read emotions on faces. I think that we're gonna see a lot of impacts from that. Again, I'm not an expert in this. This is just from what I've, the impacts that we've seen already and the things that have been discussed. So I think that there was a lot of really negative impacts. My kids were very lucky, in, the way that we handled it here in this house and the fact that they were able to, um have somebody here that was able to help with school and all of that stuff. So education-wise, they're good. Like, I don't think that they really
Yeah.
fell behind much. But I will say that my oldest was, the upheaval of her existence was, I think, a little traumatizing for her.
I'm wondering too, just seeing how some of these kids are, especially the kids who were maybe around between 10 and 18 are gonna be impacted by it. And that's when you're really starting to form an attitude about your worldview and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think of, the teenage Ayn Rand seeing her father's pharmacy get nationalized by the communists and stuff like that. And she was and sometimes I think when kids see crazy stuff like that, they spend their entire life trying to figure out, "Why did this happen?" And
Yeah, I feel really bad for seniors,
yeah,
um, who lost out on all of those experiences, senior prom, graduation,
yeah,
all of that stuff. I feel or like college kids who like lost out on an entire year of like a college experience. I mean,
yeah,
that really sucks. And
mhm.
I think you're right. I think that we're still pretty new into the after effects. I think that in the next 5, 10 years, we're gonna see a lot more of the damaging effects of all of that stuff.
Yeah, the thing that really stands out for me too, Misty, and it wasn't and then you have these after effects as you may not even consider, but
Yeah.
after all of this, I just noticed that so many places, customer service fell off a cliff.
Oh, for sure.
A
Yes. Customer service fell off a cliff. I think so many things were really,
and
it I don't know that we're ever gonna
yeah,
recover,
and the
honestly.
pl and the places that gave you a customer service still basically give you a customer service, but there's places that give you C customer service, they all went to F. They do not care at all anymore. They just,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And I just think that that's, there's a lot of reasons for that. Again, that's a very nuanced conversation. I think that, you know, the working environment of that time, I think that the whole, what did they call them? The workers who were like important. I forget what they had a term for it, but
essential workers, yes.
essential workers. I think that a lot of people were like, I'm not essential. Like, I, I think that the way that we treat people in this country, treat the working class, treat I think the way that companies treat employees, I think we're so messed up. We've got it so
Yeah.
messed up. I think employers see employees as like a dime a dozen. We just don't care about you. Like if you quit, we'll find somebody
That's
else.
nothing
And
new, unfortunately, but yes,
no, but I think it has gotten much worse.
yeah.
And I think that when you have that environment, people aren't gonna care. They don't care. They're not gonna have take any pride in their job. They're not gonna take any pride in their work. If you treat them like garbage, they're gonna come into work and do the bare minimum. And I just think that it's become so I mean, that it's just, the whole attitude that we have in this country towards workers in general, I think is just abysmal, and I think people like, we're starting like, all this, "Oh, nobody wants to work anymore." Why would you? Why would you?
Yes.
You're treated like crap, you get paid nothing, there's no benefits, you work and work and work, and you can't get ahead. Why would you? I mean, it's draining the life out of you for nothing. Like, I wouldn't want to do that either. So I think that we really need to reassess our attitude towards all of that. Like, we need to
Yeah.
give people a reason to wanna work, you know what I'm saying?
You hear about all these people just dropping out though now too because they're just so fed up, and I think there's,
Mhm.
y that's always been it's been that way a lot though, with people, it reminds me of something Mullen you said, "I won't nobody's ever gonna remember that I stayed late at work
Right?
to work on this paper, but I'm going to remember that I missed my kid's play because I stayed
Yes.
to work on that paper."
Yes, and I think that employers just expect you to be at their beck and call, like, you need to work overtime, and you gotta come in on the weekend, and
Oh, yeah.
nobody wants to when you get to, you're 85 years old and you're on your deathbed, do you wanna look back and be like, "Yeah, I stayed, late 182 times that year. Look at me, I'm good, but all that
No,
time with
I
my family." Nobody wants that. And what makes me sad, the most sad about this, Chris, is that I feel like the American public has allowed themselves to be beaten down so hard that we just feel like this is the best we can do. This is just
yeah,
it. This is what we deserve. And we deserve so much better. And it's just very frustrating.
but I remember, but, you get some of these people and, what gets me is some people brag about things, and I just wanna scream at them like, I know people, who will brag about, "Oh, look at all this money I'm getting because 'cause I'm working 80 hours a week," and
Yeah.
when you divide it up, it doesn't come that much. Or, I remember somebody in Austin once bragged about signing a 2-year lease, and what?
Yeah.
Why would
I mean, we've normalized
you
hustle culture.
yeah,
It's hustle culture in this country. I remember a long time ago, there was, some, election forum, I don't even but it was George W. Bush,
yes,
and a woman stood up and she's like, "I'm working 3 jobs and I still can't pay my bills," and he, like, treated it like it was a good thing. He's like, "Oh, that's uniquely American, isn't it?" And the audience, like, clapped, and I'm like, "No, that sucks." That sucks. Like,
yeah,
you see all these supposedly feel good stories in the news where it's like the 85-year-old guy working at Walmart to survive, and everybody's like, "Oh, look at him. Like, that's so good." No, that man shouldn't be at work. He should be at home enjoying retirement. Like,
oh, yeah,
we treat people in this country so horrendously, and we treat workers as if they're disposable, and we just do not give a shit about our neighbors. And it's pathetic, frankly. It's pathetic that we allow this to happen and that we're supposedly the greatest country on earth. We're not the greatest country on earth. We're a shit show. I mean, Trump called, I forget who, a shithole country. No, 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 no. We are the shithole country. There's no question about it. We are the shithole country. We need to all collectively come to terms with that. It sucks. We're bombarded with propaganda from the moment we exit the womb that,
yeah,
oh, we're this great country. We're not. We're absolutely not. We are failing in every available metric: education,
yeah.
happiness, all of that stuff. We suck, period.
For example, Misty, when Gene Hackman died earlier this year, and
Mhm.
they discovered it on February 25th or 26th, but then he had a pacemaker, and they saw that the pacemaker stopped on the 18th. So that was when they wrote down, this was the day he died. So
Yeah.
nobody cared that Gene died. I mean, nobody noticed. I understand why you wanna have your privacy and not have your
Yeah,
neighbors
he was
sticking their
very
nose.
reclusive.
Yeah,
Him and his wife were very, very reclusive.
yeah,
I think he was estranged from his kids. So there wasn't a lot of, like, family contact, which is very, very sad, but
yeah,
uh, that's not I don't think that that's a systemic failure as much as it is he just didn't have a good relationship with his family. And that's sad. It makes me very sad for him, but I think that, like, systemically in this country, we just don't give a shit about each other. We just
yeah,
don't. Unless something really terrible happens, if there's a tornado or a hurricane or a flood, we come we the people come together to help each other out. The government doesn't
yeah,
co like, North Carolina's still trying to figure out from the floods.
yeah.
Shit, Flint, Michigan still doesn't have clean water in the greatest
I
country in the
know,
world.
yeah, Flint, yeah, yeah, if we got people who don't have clean water, we're a third world country, it's that simple.
Exactly. We are a
Yeah,
third world
yeah,
country. What's in a
I
name?
didn't know. Yeah,
It's
people
it's a joke, Chris. It really we are a joke. And
yeah,
that sucks. It sucks to say out loud. But that is reality, and I think that a lot of people, will get in their emotions about that, and they'll get offended by the fact that I've just said that this country sucks. I'm not saying that the people suck. I love the people of this country. Like I just said, I'm a big weather geek, especially tornadoes. I'm obsessed with them, and every time there's a major tornado in this country, people from all over will come, and they will help, and they will clean up debris, volunteer. They're not there getting paid. They'll clean up debris. There's no fanfare. They're not getting media attention. They don't do any of it for that. They're just helping their neighbors. And America is very unique in that way. Um, and I love that about this country, but our government doesn't give a single solitary. I mean, Hurricane Katrina. I mean, seriously, do we need to go any further than that? Our government has abandoned the people. That's the reality
yeah.
of where we are. The government doesn't work for us. They don't care about us. We're on our own, and we need to come to terms with that and then act accordingly.
Well, I do this is getting to something else though too, though, and I think that we're really getting to a breakdown of families. I mean, there's
Mhm.
I
That's
think
also
I think
intentional.
a lot of young men and women don't even have any hope of having families anymore. I think they
Who
I
can afford it?
yeah.
Who can afford it? Like, it's and then they're talking about giving mothers, like, a $5,000 baby bonus. Y'all, that won't even cover,
Oh, I
like,
know.
a day in the hospital having a baby. That that won't even that won't even cover the first 6 months of a baby's life.
Yeah,
That's an insult. That's
that's
an
just
insult.
that's just more window dressing.
Yes.
And this is something I really want women to know. I said, men are not afraid of marriage. They're afraid of divorce.
Yes. I think women are too, though.
Yeah.
I think that we have and again, this is intentional. The 2 sexes have been manipulated to distrust each other immensely and to be suspicious of each other and to not you know what I mean? Like, everybody's, like, very cautious about each other, and that's very sad. But I think women are also afraid of divorce, and I think that a lot of women would love nothing more than to get married and have babies and stay home and raise them. But they're terrified of doing that because then if you get divorced and you haven't been working, you're fucked. Like you and I know because I mean, I'm
Yes.
not worried about getting divorced, but I've been a stay-at-home mom because I have a child with a disability for the past 17 years. And so I understand that like there's a little anxiety there. Like I have a great marriage. I have no fear of getting divorced.
Yeah.
And I know that even if something did happen and like my husband is an upstanding dude, he would take care of us. Like there's no question in my mind. But a lot of women have that fear. I think that they really want to be able to have that opportunity, but they're terrified of giving up that independence because they've been ingrained with
Yeah.
that you have to be independent. You have to be able to take care of yourself. And it's true. But I just think that and it sucks to me the way that we treat mothers. We do not there's no reverence for mothers. We don't respect motherhood at all in this country. Again, a $5,000 baby bonus is a slap in the face. How about instead of that, we have a functioning healthcare system where people
Yeah.
can actually afford to go into labor and have a baby? Or how about we have a functioning education system where we can send our kids to an educational institution and they're going to actually get an education? How
Yeah.
about we have a functioning economy where people can afford housing and all of those things. Like that's if you want to encourage women to have babies, that's how you do it. You have a functioning society where they
Yes.
feel comfortable bringing a baby into the world. Right now, who would wanna bring a baby into this country?
Oh, I know. That's one thing I do look at Gaza. It's like, why would you have kids here?
Well, they don't have a lot of, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not
Well,
like they have, readily accessible birth control
yeah.
or any of that stuff, nor should they even have to think about that.
I agree.
They
Yeah.
should be able to live on their land safely and be able to have as many babies as they want and not have to worry about the fact that they are being illegally occupied and indiscriminately bombed and all of that stuff. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah.
I feel like that kind of borders on, like, some victim shaming a little bit, like,
Well,
I
yeah, it's true.
right now, you shouldn't, trying to have babies
Agree.
there right now is, I mean, I can't even imagine,
But,
um, but it's not through no fault of their own.
true. I think we're at almost at a point where we're getting toward mouse utopia. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Mhm.
They gave the mice everything they needed and the population went up, but then they got antisocial and became extinct.
Mm.
I mean, with birth rates, transgenderism, the impossibility of having kids, they're really, they're really just trying to destroy the whole population in my view, it seems. The only disagreement I with you, I do have to ask, why do you send your kids to school?
Our school district is great. We live in a fantastic school district. Um, we have, especially for my oldest, the, services that she is afforded there, speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, adaptive phys ed. She's doing job training right now. There's so many things that are afforded to her
That's great.
through school that I just don't think that I'm not a speech and language pathologist. There's no way. I am a very intelligent human being. I don't think that I have those capacities. And our school district is
Those are
fantastic.
definitely, yeah, those are definitely special cases.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta ask too, it doesn't sound like, you're at the Rain Man level type of autism
No.
that we hear about, which is what I still think of when I hear autism.
Yeah,
But,
that's a very small
you
percentage.
know, I assume you probably were at least sympathetic to what RFK2 said about this,
About what?
when he said about, autism destroys families, which I think was a little bit over the top, but
I think that that's a very dangerous,
okay,
narrative to push. Autistic kids are at huge risk for being victims of assault, of violence,
okay.
domestic violence, child abuse,
Yeah,
all of that stuff, and so painting them as some, you know, horrible burden that's destroying families, I think is a very dangerous way to phrase it, for sure.
maybe so.
Um, I think that that was very, irresponsible as a way.
Yeah,
And it's not necessarily that he's wrong per se. Severe autism is incredibly difficult. There's been studies that have been done that saying parents of severely autistic children endure more stress than combat soldiers.
yes,
It's very, very, very hard. But instead of presenting them as if they're some crazy burden that is destroying the family,
yeah,
we should be trying to figure out ways to support those families
true.
and to offer ways. And the thing that bothers me the most about Kennedy and his whole autism thing is that he's trying to pretend as if he's going to discover the cause of autism by September, and that's just a lie. He's lying. It's not
I think you will.
possible. It's not possible. You cannot do proper medical studies in months. That's not how it works, my guy. He's pushing a certain narrative. And I think that his whole thing about vaccines, I mean, listen, vaccines have been studied. You can trust the studies or not trust the studies. I don't trust anything. But that whole thing has been probably one of the single most studied things when it comes to autism because of the whole
Yeah,
the initial false study that was done years ago. And I have no problem if you want to continue to look at vaccines and the potential that it could kick off that's great, go for it, do it, but we need to also start looking at other things, and I feel like he is like solely focused on one thing, and I don't, frankly, I don't think it's any one thing. I think that there's a
yeah,
huge genetic component, huge. I think that there's a very, 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 very clear genetic component. But I don't think it's any one thing. I think that it's possible that maybe vaccines kick off something in a certain percentage of the
yeah,
autistic population. I think it's possible that some of I mean, we knew, at least I knew, mother's intuition. I knew my daughter was autistic very like 3, 4, 5 months old before she'd really gotten any kind of,
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, so, I think that it could be a whole host of things, but I think that Kennedy has an agenda, and he's serving that agenda. I don't think he really gives a shit about the autism community at all. I think he's serving his
maybe
agenda.
so. I do think though, because of his age, and he's really, I wish they'd kept, they seem to have discarded the term Asperger's, which I think is a better term, but I think because he's older, he really is thinking of of those severe cases that you're talking about, and that's what I don't think people realize, because
I
the
just
it's
think that people were very off it was very off-putting the way that he phrased it.
yeah,
And I think that and again, I have no issue
yeah,
with, looking into I would love that. I would love to learn what causes autism? How can we better handle it, deal with it, prevent it even? And people get mad when you say prevent it because you're trying to erase autistic people.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the case. But when you have a severely autistic child who's nonverbal, who is banging their head against a wall and is a threat to themselves and
Oh, yeah.
others, like, I would love to not see that child suffer. And I think that we would all agree that that's a horrible thing to watch that child have to suffer through that, and it would be great if we could figure out how to not have that
Yeah.
happen. But again, I just think he's serving an agenda. I don't think he
Yeah.
actually gives a shit. I think
Okay.
he's using this as a political football, and that's what pisses me off, is that he doesn't it's not really about actually helping these families. If it was, he would be instantly right now providing money towards services to those families, providing respite care so that moms get a break and they can go and like go to the spa or something or just go read a book and not have to worry about being beat up by their child or whatever.
Yeah.
There's no effort towards that, which is it, to me that's just ridiculous. If you actually care about those families, then provide them with some relief, give them some services that will aid them in their everyday lives.
Yeah. I mean, I hope we can have a conversation to just, it's because I sometimes I wonder too if maybe these kids had some kind of traumatic experience and and it makes them put up a wall in their minds, where they're blocking these things out. I don't know. I think it'd be very, it'd certainly be very interesting because this kind of stuff really does fascinate me because I wonder, how does the mind work? How can we make the mind work better? If I got to ask too, does your daughter have any superpowers?
She's not
Yeah,
like she can't count cards.
yeah, that kind
But
of.
she has a really amazing memory. And she's very, very, very knowledgeable about animals. She very often will tell me a fact about an animal, and I'm like, "Is she right?" And I have to like Google it. And so she's very often proves to be far smarter than I am on that kind of stuff. She's always been that way. She's always animals has always been kind of her thing. Like usually, not usually, often autistic kids will have like a special focus, like something it could be vacuum cleaners, it could be whatever. Hers has always been animals, and she's very knowledgeable about animals. And she just has a really good memory when it comes to facts about stuff like that. She just has the ability to just keep that stuff up there and just draw any kind of fact about an animal that you want to know at any time. So, which is kind of fascinating.
She can be a vet.
Yeah, she potentially. I don't know that she could. I don't think she could be a vet. Um, I mean, I don't mean to like minimize her capabilities.
Yeah.
She can do whatever she really wants to, but I have to be realistic. And she's like reading, writing at like maybe a second grade level. She's 17. So she's very delayed on a lot of things. She has a lot of gross motor and fine motor delays, like, she's very clumsy, has a difficult time with stairs, especially coming
Oh,
down. She's very, unsure of
oh,
herself with stairs, things like that. She has a difficult time writing, like, fine motor stuff. She has a hard time she still writes like a little kid, so stuff like that. Like, she's just very developmentally delayed, just in general.
okay. Thanks for that explanation. One thing I imagine though, for example, imagine, well, maybe she could be able to say, but oh, I remember you. You were in here 9 months ago, and
Yeah.
that would really make, when you can do things like that, that really makes your patients feel comfortable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she has an amazing memory. It's incredible. Like, she remembers things that I'm like, how do you remember that?" Like, things like, she remembers things like she was 3 years old, and she remembers it, and I'm like, "You were 3. I don't remember things from when I was 3." I mean, some, like, I have, like, vague memories of stuff, but she, like, very clearly remembers things that happened when she was 3 years old, and her ability to kind of retain that stuff is it's cool. I don't have that.
yeah, that's pretty wild. Yeah, sounds like you had some. Well, hopefully, I hope we can figure these things out. We never did get to talking about Ukraine.
We did not.
That's another issue where Trump seems to be,
He's
he's
gonna
going at
end it in 24 hours,
military
Chris.
budget, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, all these people, uh, you know, we I am a big fan of Javier Milei, and I will admit, he once I remember he once said, they said, "I can make you as rich as Americans," but he said, "Yeah, but in about 35 years." And I said, that's probably doable, but sometimes I do think these grandiose promises just,
It's bullshit.
I would think they would turn people off, but,
People love to hear what they wanna hear, and that's what I'm saying, like, Trump knows that. He knows that if he just says the things that people wanna hear, a lot of people will just believe him because they want to. And he knows that, and he's very good at playing to his audience. He's a Hollywood guy, right? He's
yeah, he is.
a reality star and he's in the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. He's very good at playing a role. Like, that's what he does. Um, and it's weird to me that people still buy it, especially given all of the lies and promises he didn't keep and all of the stuff that he's just done and gotten away with, that people give him a pass on this stuff, which is bizarre to me. Like, he everybody kept telling me that he's the anti-war option. He's gonna increase the military budget again.
Yes.
Again. Like, wait, what? And I knew that was coming. Anybody paying attention knew that was coming. Anybody
Oh,
paying
yes.
attention knew he was in Israel's pocket, knew he was never gonna end the situation in Ukraine in 24 hours, knew he was probably gonna go to war with Iran. Like, we all knew this was happening, but his supporters, for some reason, they just turn their brains off and they're like, "Yeah, he's the anti-war option." No, he's not. That's absurd. That's like calling Barack Obama an anti-war option. Sir Drones a lot. You know what I mean? Like, and Trump dropped more drone strikes than Obama. And that's your anti-war guy? Like, it's just embarrassing, guys. Stop it.
Yeah, I don't know how I don't think this is eventually this has to explode, but it's amazing it's survived as long as it has.
Yeah.
There are so many bubbles in this world we live in that just keep getting
I
it's
just
like
wish people would snap out of it. I really do. I wish people would snap out of it and stop buying into this nonsense. You're getting played. Like, Trump supporters, and I have nothing against Trump supporters. Again, I don't do the ism thing. I'm not a member of any party. I don't subscribe. I mean, like you said, my name is Comrade Misty is Putin's buddy. That's just a joke. I'm not a communist. People come
yes,
at
I
me on
know
Twitter,
that's just
"You're a
being
communist." I'm like,
sarcastic with people,
no.
yes.
Well, it's from a Jimmy Dore joke.
Yeah,
Because somebody called him Putin's buddy. Gary Kasparov said he was Putin's buddy, and it made me laugh years ago, like ages ago, 2016, and this was at the time when everybody was calling me a Russian, bot or whatever, the whole Russiagate
yes.
thing, or everybody was a Russian. So I just made that my Twitter handle, and it stuck. I'm not a communist, I'm not a libertarian, I'm not a liberal, I'm not any of those things. I'm politically homeless. I take things issue by issue. I like to take in new information, change my mind when I'm presented with new things. Like, I don't do the cult of politics. I'm not interested. And so I have nothing against Trump supporters, but y'all are getting played on Maine on a daily basis. Like, he's playing you like a fiddle. And it sucks. And I wish you guys would snap out of it. Please.
Yeah, I don't know if, people are going to snap out of it or
They're not.
I
They're not.
you don't really seem to blame the American people though, which is,
No. They're a victim of
I
propaganda.
think they are victims.
Yes.
I guess I just seems like they're willing victims is what I'm thinking.
There is a little bit of that. Um, I can't fault people for that either. We're in a really desperate time, and I think that when people are desperate, they look for any hope that they can. And I think a lot of that is what we're seeing, where people just really, really, really want Trump to be the guy that they thought he was. He's just not. And I think that that's hard to let go of. I think there's a little bit of sunken cost fallacy where you're in it so deep already that it's hard to admit you were wrong and to admit you got played. That sucks, admitting you got played. Um, People don't like doing that. And it's really difficult to do that self reflection and realize that shit, you know what I mean? Like, I got played. That sucks. Um, so I think that there's a little bit of that. It's just that like kind of uh, I don't know. I just think people are struggling and just desperately looking around. Like there's a desperate need um to feel like somebody's going to fix things and it's just not Donald Trump. It's just
Yeah,
not.
sometimes yeah, sometimes I wonder if that's not gonna be what the case is too either. Well, this has been a great talk. I think we've been longer than you said you had, and I know you got
Yeah, I
family to
gotta go make
attend to.
dinner.
Yeah, it was yeah, I know you gotta take care of your family, that's always more important, it's, yeah, but I've loved having you on here. I knew you'd be great, so,
I'm happy to come back anytime, so,
yeah.
we can reschedule, and of course, you can come on my show as well.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, I'll have to see when your show is, yeah, should be
yeah,
fun. Yeah, smart women who are fun, that's always my favorite guests on here,
yeah.
need to get more of them, but,
I love smart women. I
uh,
love smart women. I mean, I like smart people in general.
well, I
Um,
love smart women too because I always appreciated them, although some
yeah.
of them did yeah, but well, where can we find you out there?
So, I'm on Twitter a lot, too much.
Yes.
So that's at Sarcasm Stardust.
S
That's my little nod to Carl Sagan too. I'm a big Carl
Yeah,
Sagan fan, so, that's where, you can find me on Twitter, and then my show is actually on, the Due Dissidence platform on Rumble. We also stream it on Twitter,
yeah,
and then we post clips on YouTube. So it's not streamed live on YouTube because the YouTube censors and I do not get along.
yes,
So we stream it just on Rumble and on Twitter, and then we do clips and post those on YouTube. So you can follow Due Dissidence on Rumble and or YouTube or both. Or
yes.
if you just follow me on Twitter, it's streamed there as well. And it's
I
Wednesdays at 7
yeah,
Eastern.
I so wish Carl Sagan had been alive in 2020.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't really want him to have to go through like, people always say, "I wish George Carlin was around." I mean, kind of, but I also don't want him to have to deal with this bullshit.
True, the person who I really there's some people that if they'd been alive, Kerry Mullis, of course, I wish he'd been alive because he was the guy who invented the PCR test, and
Yeah.
he hated Fauci, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
Fauci is still not in jail. Just saying.
the governor of Nevada got punished for this. Mike DeWine didn't get punished for it,
Yeah.
as awful as he's always been.
Yeah, that's my governor.
Oh yeah, and neither did Greg Abbott. Well, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, go buy my novel Escape from the Village, check out my Substack, go to Buy Me a Coffee where people are giving me money. Thank you, Misty Winston. I'm Chris
Thank
Baker.
you.
Buy my novel Escape from the Village from major booksellers online. Go to escapevillage.com. Subscribe to the Substack. Go to fountainheadforum.substack.com. Support the forum. Go to buymeacoffee.com/fountainheadforum. Thank you.